Reeves had returned to Maplewood under the gray wash of autumn skies. The memory of her father's crypt-keeping hands still trembling around her own as he helped her bury a childhood goldfish. 20 years later, she walked the uneven stones of Greenwood Cemetery, a place she once thought sacred, now haunted by rumors darker than any funeral hymn. Over decades, the edge of town had spilled into this moss-choked plot, but the heart of Greenwood remained stubbornly ancient. A tangle of wrought iron headstones, crumbling mausoleums, and earth so packed it resisted every shovel and spade. On her first morning back, Clara found something impossible. She had come to check on her father's weathered marker, an oxblood granite slab carved simply with Thomas Reeves' 1950 to 2019, only to discover the earth before it was smooth and undisturbed, the coffin and coffin lid gone without a trace. No scratched dirt, no splintered wood, no sign he had ever lain there. The headstone stood slick with dew as though it had never supported a body. And under the stone's lip, Clara felt a tremor, a pulse so faint it could have been her own. She dialed Deputy Sam Carter on her cell. Sam had grown up next door to Clara, as steady and unflappable as the courthouse clock tower. When he arrived, breath misting between his teeth, she led him to the empty grave. "I checked the records," Sam said quietly, shading his eyes against the pale sun. "Dad's plot is listed as filled, vault installed in 19. We should have paperwork. I'll bring it by." That afternoon, Sam returned with faded ledgers and a single photograph. Thomas Reeves beside his own headstone, pipe in hand, smiling at the camera. Clara's breath caught at the sight of her father, alive, vibrant, wearing a coat too big for him. And beside him, 5 other headstones, each bearing a name from a century ago. Now only the markers remained. The names: Eleanor Webb, 1920-1921, Vincent Hale, 1913-1913, Mildred Stokes, 1913-1913, Arthur Young, 1912-1912, Beatrice Morgan, 1912-1913, victims of the great influenza scourge that had pummeled this county 100 years earlier. Clara traced the chiseled names with a fingertip. Why would 5 one-year-olds have plots next to Dad's? He wasn't born until 1950. Her voice trembled. Why those graves? The originals were moved, Sam murmured, handing her a yellowed newspaper clipping. When the Reigelman family bought land for the mass tomb in 20, the city relocated all the flu victims to a communal grave. But the markers stayed. They said it was tradition. "It was never finished," Clara whispered, reading between the lines. "Relocation complete pending final blessing." That night, Clara snuck past the wrought iron gates under a sliver of moon. The cemetery lay silent, the tombstones cast in silver and shadow. She carried a flashlight and her father's old keyring still hanging on a hook in his study, just in case some locked crypt needed opening. The cool air smelled of damp earth and fallen leaves. At plot Eleanor Webb, she knelt and tapped the soil. The ground felt hollow, like a roofless chamber. She shone her beam into the hole. Darkness, yes, but deeper at the center, something glimmered. A ring of black stone around a yawning void. A whisper floated across the stone, soft as a breeze. "Return us." Clara froze, shaking her head. "I'm sorry," she said aloud, not sure who she addressed. She felt the grave tremble beneath her palm. The beam flickered. A low creak echoed from the center. She scrambled back, heart pounding. The next day, she visited Reverend Holloway, the aging town historian and gardener of ancient souls. He dozed in his chair behind oak stacks of records. "I told your father the truth," the Reverend rasped. "Those children were never meant to rest elsewhere. Their markers were to guide you back. The ritual, it never ended, Clara. They are undone until someone reads their names in the right order and seals them with blood once more." Clara leaned forward. "A blood ritual? You mean my father? He performed the blessing," Holloway interrupted. "But he grew timid. He could not finish. Now every dawn, 5 graves empty. Next, it'll be your father unless you complete it." That night, Clara read the old ledger by candlelight. The names, 5 in all, marked by date, 1912 to 1913. She arranged them chronologically: Arthur Young, Beatrice Morgan, Vincent Hale, Mildred Stokes, Eleanor Webb. Across a century, they waited in silence. She prepared simple sacrifices, her own blood drawn with trembling hands, dripped into a silver chalice. She carried it to Greenwood under a waning moon. Sam followed at a discreet distance, flashlight in one hand, pistol in the other. At midnight, she stood at Arthur Young's marker. The headstone gleamed white under starlight, the name precise. She spoke his name clearly. Arthur Young. A chill wind stirred. The earth at her feet trembled. She moved to Beatrice Morgan. Beatrice Morgan. A faint glow leaked from the soil. Beatrice's grave spilled a thin mist. Clara wept as she spoke each name, letting crimson drops fall on the cold stone. Vincent Hale. Mildred Stokes. Eleanor Webb. With each invocation, the ground shivered, then settled. At Eleanor's name, the mist coalesced, then sank back into the earth, leaving the ground smooth. Thunder rumbled, though the sky remained clear. The flush of dawn glowed on the horizon. Sam exhaled. It worked. Clara touched the final headstone, Eleanor's. The surface was cold, solid. She poured the rest of her blood into the soft earth, whispering a benediction taught by her father. The ground closed. No trace of mist. Only the flutter of birch leaves. They waited until the sun cracked the darkness. Birds sang in uneven hallelujah. Clara then noticed another slab behind her. Her father's. Thomas Reeves's mark, still solid. He knelt beside her, frail but breathing. He looked at her, tears wet on his cheeks. "You finished it." Behind him, row upon row of headstones, fresh, new names etched in crisp spokes, townspeople who had gone missing over the years. Clara shivered. "Now they sleep," her father said. In the months that followed, Greenwood Cemetery returned to its stillness. No graves vanished. The markers stood silent sentinels under the sun. Each dawn, Clara brought fresh flowers, daisies for innocence, scattered over the 100-year-old plots. Yet sometimes, when the wind was still and shadows lengthened, she could swear she heard a child's laughter, soft and distant, drifting from below the stones. And in the hush, she'd touch her own finger, now scarlet-stained, and murmur, "Rest, little ones, rest at peace."